On May 25, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 took off from Chicago O'Hare International Airport. 31 seconds later, the left engine detached from the wing. The plane rolled, banked sharply, and fell from the sky.
We're banking. Go right, go right.
The plane is banking sharply to the left. It's only 325 feet from the ground.
I can't hold it.
American 191 Heavy, do you copy?
273 people died instantly. It remains the deadliest aviation accident in United States history. Among the passengers was a 66-year-old scientist named Itzhak Bentov. He was traveling to a conference where he planned to present research that would challenge everything we think we know about consciousness and reality. 3 years earlier, he'd published a book claiming that the universe was a hologram, that time was an illusion, and that human consciousness could literally bend the fabric of reality itself. Some people think his death wasn't an accident, but we'll get to that. First, you need to understand who Itzhak Bentov was, because his story doesn't start with equations and laboratories. It starts with a teenager fleeing the Nazis. Bentov was born in Czechoslovakia in 1923. When Hitler invaded, his family escaped to Israel, where Bentov joined the underground resistance. He wasn't a soldier, he was an inventor. He built weapons, bombs, and communication devices for fighters trying to establish the State of Israel. By the time he was in his 20s, he'd already learned something most people never figure out. Reality is malleable. If you understand the mechanics, you can build things that shouldn't exist. After the war, he moved to the United States and started inventing medical devices. He held dozens of patents, including the steerable cardiac catheter, a device that saved countless lives and is still used in hospitals today. He was brilliant, respected, wealthy. He could have lived a comfortable life as a conventional biomedical engineer. But Bentov had a problem. He kept having experiences that didn't fit into the scientific worldview he'd been trained in. During meditation, he'd feel his body vibrating, not metaphorically, physically vibrating, like a tuning fork. He could hear sounds that weren't there. He'd have visions of geometric patterns, grids of light, entire cosmologies unfolding in his mind. And the strangest part, when he came out of these states, he'd have insights about physics and consciousness that he couldn't explain. Ideas that seemed to come from somewhere outside himself. So he did what any good scientist would do. He started building machines to measure what was happening. He rigged up sensors to monitor meditators. He measured their brain waves, their heart rates, their muscular vibrations, and he found something extraordinary. During deep meditation, the human body begins to resonate at a frequency of about 7 to 8 hertz. Not just the brain, the entire body, pulsing in rhythm like a bell that's been struck. Now here's why that matters. The Earth itself has an electromagnetic field that resonates at approximately the same frequency. It's called the Schumann resonance. and it's generated by lightning strikes in the atmosphere, creating standing waves between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. 7.83 Hertz, almost exactly the same frequency Bentov was measuring in meditators. He realized something profound. When a human being reaches a deep meditative state, they're not just relaxing, they're synchronizing with the planet itself. They're tuning into the grid. But what is the grid? That's where Bentov's work gets really strange. He proposed something he called the cosmic egg model. Imagine reality as a series of nested layers, like an onion. At the very center is absolute consciousness, pure potential, infinite, formless. No time, no space, just infinite possibility. As you move outward through the layers, consciousness begins to slow down, to densify, to take on form. Each layer vibrates at a different frequency. The outermost layer is physical reality, the material world we experience with our five senses. This is the slowest, densest layer. Time appears linear here. Cause and effect seem fixed. Matter feels solid. But according to Bentov, this solidity is an illusion. Physical reality is just consciousness vibrating at a very slow frequency. And if you can change your frequency, you can move between the layers. You can access parts of reality where time isn't linear, where the past and future exist simultaneously, where the boundaries between thoughts and things dissolve. He believed human consciousness had this ability naturally. We've just forgotten how to use it. In his book, he described reality as a hologram, not metaphorically, literally. He said every point in space contains information about the whole universe. Just like every fragment of a holographic plate contains the entire image. When you change something in one part of the hologram, the entire structure shifts. This is why synchronicities happen. This is why thoughts sometimes seem to manifest in physical reality. Because there's no separation between mind and matter at the fundamental level. They're both waves in the same field. He called this the God formula. Not because he was religious. Bentov wasn't trying to start a religion. He called it that because it described the mechanics of creation itself, how something comes from nothing, how consciousness collapses infinite potential into specific form. The same process that brought the universe into existence is the same process happening through you, right now, in every moment. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your focus, they're not passive observations. They're active forces shaping the hologram. When you shift your internal frequency, the grid responds. Reality reorganizes itself around your new vibration. This is where things get uncomfortable for mainstream science. Because if Bentov was right, it means we're not powerless observers in a mechanical universe. It means consciousness is fundamental. It means reality is participatory. It means you're not reading a story that's already been written. You're writing it. Bentov didn't just theorize about this. He claimed to have experienced it directly. During meditation, he said he could travel outside his body. He'd visit other dimensions, communicate with non-physical entities, access information he couldn't possibly know through normal means. And when he came back, he'd verify the information. It would check out. He also worked closely with Robert Monroe, founder of the Monroe Institute, which researched altered states of consciousness. Monroe had developed audio technology that could induce out-of-body experiences using specific sound frequencies. Bentov helped him understand the physics behind why it worked. They were mapping the layers of the cosmic egg using nothing but sound and consciousness, And here's where it gets really interesting. The CIA was paying attention. In 1983, 4 years after Bentov's death, the CIA released a classified report called Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. It was an evaluation of the Monroe Institute's techniques. The report concluded that the techniques worked, that human consciousness could indeed access non-physical dimensions of reality. They cited Bentov's work extensively. The government had been studying this. They knew. The question is, what were they planning to do with it? Some researchers believe Bentov was assassinated. They point to the timing. He died just as his work was gaining attention. They point to the nature of the crash, mechanical failure at the worst possible moment. They point to who else was interested in his research: intelligence agencies, military contractors, people who wanted to weaponize consciousness. Could you use these techniques for remote viewing, for psychic espionage, for controlling the grid itself? We don't know. What we do know is that Bentov died before he could finish his work. His second book was never completed. His research notes disappeared, and mainstream science quietly dismissed his ideas as pseudoscience, even though nobody could refute his measurements or his logic. But his widow, Myrtala, continued his research. She published his unfinished manuscripts. She taught his meditation techniques, and slowly, quietly, his ideas began to spread. Today, quantum physicists are starting to catch up to what Bentov was saying in the 70s. The observer effect in quantum mechanics shows that measurement changes reality.
On the smallest possible scale that we've ever discovered, the quantum universe, the mere act of observation changes reality. Okay, photons, keep on coming. This time, we promise not to look. You're not going to believe this, but we can change the pattern on the far wall simply by not watching which slit the photons pass through.
Experiments with entanglement suggest that space and time aren't fundamental, that everything is connected in a deeper, non-local way.
Decades of laboratory studies show that our minds have a mysterious ordering effect on quantum-level phenomena.
Because the whole universe is actually folded within every single conscious being. It's like a quantum hologram. But if you look at it, every single sentient being in the cosmos has folded within the structure the entirety of the cosmos, everything. Within these deep, quiet, meditative states, you can obtain knowledge, see places, know things, communicate. Because in reality, it's always there. You just have to get into a quiet state of consciousness where it opens to you.
The holographic principle is now a serious theory in theoretical physics. Bentov was ahead of his time. Way ahead. So what does this mean for you? It means the world you're experiencing right now isn't fixed. The past you remember isn't carved in stone. Your relationship to it changes as you change, and that changes how it affects you. The future you're worried about isn't predetermined. It's a field of possibilities, and which one becomes real depends on the frequency you're holding right now. Most people never realize this. They go through life thinking they're victims of circumstance. They believe the story they've been told about who they are, what's possible, what they deserve. They're tuned into a frequency of limitation, and the grid gives them exactly that. But when you understand what Bentov understood, when you realize you're not separate from the grid, you're part of it.
Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world.
Everything changes. Coincidences stop feeling random. You start noticing patterns. Synchronicities stack up. The right people appear at the right time. Doors open that shouldn't have opened. Reality starts bending around you. This isn't magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's physics. It's the mechanics of how consciousness interacts with the holographic field of reality. Bentov spent his life trying to show us this. He built the machines. He did the experiments. He mapped the cosmic egg. He gave us the formula. And then he died in a plane crash 31 seconds after takeoff. Maybe it was just mechanical failure. Maybe it was just terrible luck. Or maybe someone didn't want this information getting out. Maybe someone realized that if people understood they could bend the grid, the whole system of control would collapse. We'll probably never know the truth about what happened on Flight 191. But we do know this. Bentov's work survived. His ideas are still here. The grid is still waiting. And the question he left us with is simple. Are you going to keep living like you're reading a story someone else wrote? Or are you ready to pick up the pen and rewrite it yourself? Because the grid is listening, and it responds to the frequency you choose.